Love many things, for therein lies true strength. And whosoever loves much, performs much, and can accomplish much. And what is done in love is done well. Welcome to Polymath Library. I'm Jade, and I'm presenting you a new series, a new podcast. I think it's a new podcast because I think a series entails there's an end in sight, and there is no end in sight here. So welcome to the ride. Welcome to the Lore of Vincent Van Gogh. Maybe now is a good time to do a little background tour. So we have the cypress trees painting, not an original. Watercolors, Vincent Van Gogh's watercolor set, also not an original. I just blended in here. Passion art book of Vincent Van Gogh. You can kind of, it literally blends into the painting that's behind it, I think. I'm not only in my camera, okay. And the reason why we're all here today is his book of letters. So I've been debating how to go about this podcast for a long time. By the way, this is like an introduction episode. So I wanted to write, not now, years ago, I wanted to write a book called Van Gogh and Me, because I found so many similarities between his life and mine when reading his letters. And yeah, I know that sounds self-absorbed, like Van Gogh and Me. It's the title of a book, but I wanted it to be like some kind of memoir. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized it was just going to be like a book of weird essays that no one would want to read. Like, it would be a book of self-absorbed essays that, no one would want to read. But this brings me to another point where, like, when art is so specific, it becomes more relatable, which is really interesting. Like, someone can describe completely different details to what you've ever experienced, but it just kind of creates a picture of the heart of the moment. And I think that's the relatable part. Anyway, which brings me back to our beloved Vincent and his letters. And Theo, his brother. Okay, disclaimer, I don't think I know how to pronounce Dutch names. Okay, so I'm pretty sure it's Vincent Van Gogh. I'm sorry. And I'm pretty sure his brother's name is pronounced Theo. I'm probably going to say Theo a lot. I do my best. Anyway, these letters, we wouldn't have these letters if it wasn't for Van Gogh's, Vincent's, there's a lot of Van Goghs in the story, okay, so we need to be specific. If it wasn't for Vincent's sister-in-law, Theo's wife, Johanna Gesine Van Gogh Bonger, I don't know how to say her name. Okay, so she was a multilingual Dutch editor and translator of the letters of the Van Gogh brothers. As a wife of art dealer Theo Van Gogh, she was the sister-in-law of the painter Vincent Van Gogh. We owe it all to you, girl. You beautiful woman. Like, once again, a woman saves the day, okay? Because, okay, this is where I need to interject also, is that within this story, like, he had kind of a dark life. Well, there are dark aspects of his life, so this is just this is for every trigger warning, all the trigger warnings for like mental health issues at the most, like sicknesses, so anyway, if it wasn't for this woman, we wouldn't have these letters, and we probably wouldn't even know who Van Gogh was, because I think within 2 years of each other, let's check Theo was 19, it must have been between a year or two. Both Theo and Vincent, they both passed away within a year or two of each other. And Johanna, I'm gonna need to figure that out. We're gonna say Johanna. She was left with a house of these letters, and I think almost all of Van Gogh's paintings. And she decided that the world needed them, and she took it upon herself to show the world. Like, we really owe her. And you've probably seen, I don't know what circles of the internet you frequent, but if you're here, then I'm pretty sure you've seen these pictures of Vincent and Theo's grave sites, because they're beautiful. They're right beside each other. There's usually different like flowers on it. I think there's always ivy covering both of them. Even the fortitude, the thinking that the letters between the brothers should be translated. I mean, I understand why, because the letters are just downright poetic. They really are. And she saw something in them. I guess since Vincent's brother Theo was an art dealer, she probably was in these circles, I'm guessing. I don't know how much we know about her. I'll have to research that and see if we can do like an episode dedicated to her. But she decided the world needs to see them. You know, whether Van Gogh sold like one painting in his life, whether he didn't sell any, whether he sold a few but they were just commissions from his family. The point is, we would not know who he is today without her. Fame was not something he achieved in his life at all. Okay, so what is this podcast? In order to answer that question, I need to go down probably one of many rabbit holes, and I need to, again, Van Gogh and me. We've got to make it personal. Okay. When I was maybe 23, 24, I was on Tumblr. And I think this was the time before Tumblr had got acquired. Either that or it had gotten acquired, but nothing had really... I'm trying to say, it was like, maybe not the golden age of Tumblr, but it was just shortly thereafter. I decided I wanted to change my aesthetic. I was going through some stuff. I don't need to get into it here, but I was at not even a crossroads. I was just in the middle of a road without any street signs. So I wanted to change my aesthetic. My personality even. I wanted to just change it all. And, you know, I've had periods of my life like this, mostly in my 20s, of just having some kind of vision in my mind. Like, for a while I was, I wanted like midnight blue hair because I saw a picture of, I think from Sailor Moon, Jupiter Moon, or Sailor Jupiter, I don't know. I didn't have cable growing up. I only had PBS, public broadcasting system, so I never watched Sailor Moon. But I saw this picture and so I eventually, this is not the story I'm talking about, this is after, but dyed my hair this color, and then everything I was finding was just like matching this color. And that's happened to me. That happens, you know. You get a blue car and then all you see are blue cars or whatever. Anyway, I wanted to change my personality, wanted to change my aesthetic. And this is embarrassing, but the aesthetic I was going for, I think, was lovingly referred to at the time as art ho. Because I was saying on Tumblr, I think I'd somehow gotten to this like European museum side of Tumblr, or New York museums, or just city museums, probably European museums, and it just got me. You know, I wanted to like wear black tights, probably with a few, you know, holes in them, mini skirts, collegial shirts or whatever, and just be mysterious. I think that's what it was. I wanted to be the mysterious girl you see at a museum. That's what I wanted. I started painting, not original paintings, but I would find like a picture of inspiration and just paint my own version of it. And I would watch like YouTube videos, like lectures from universities. I didn't go to a real university, so I was, I think, hungering after some real knowledge. So these like university lecture recordings about like art history and art science, I don't know if you could say, because I eventually stumbled on one that was about Van Gogh's paintings, about the paints. You can see in the background here a close-up of his paint, so you see how thick the layers are, and even how the paint is cracking. And I mean, we'll get it. There's so much. That's why we're here, because there's so many things to discuss. Sometimes he did not have money, so sometimes he would reuse canvases. So they use this technology to find the pictures underneath the current one, and also to test the paint to see what it actually looked like in 1880, around the time he was painting. And I was like, wow. And then I think around this same time, somehow I was at a Half Price Books, browsing the aisles. And at this time that I was watching that, I don't think I had a clear understanding of the different artists. Like, I'm pretty sure I was mixing up Van Gogh and Picasso and Monet and Manet. I mean, I don't even think I knew who Manet was at the point. Let's be real. And Matisse, I don't think I had a clear understanding of who was who. But I found this book and I was like, oh, Van Gogh. I just watched a lecture about him. I'll pick it up. And here's why I will show you the book. Because I must have gotten this about 10 years ago. Oh, we love an ASMR moment. Let's see, is there even 1996? Wow. Anyway, I got this used, but it's from 1996. She's in great condition. Penguin Classic. I mean, just the letters. There we go. Of Vincent Van Gogh. Yes. You know what? I may as well read this, because if you're like me, then you might not have known about his life. So let's get a little synopsis. Vincent Willem van Gogh was born in Holland in 1853. He became an assistant with an international firm of art dealers in 1881. So he would have been 30. So they left out a lot, actually. I mean, there's a very detailed biographical outline. Okay. In 1853, he was born. He was the oldest of 6. However, his mom had... See, I'm telling you all the trigger warnings. If you can think about it, it's going to be mentioned. He was the oldest, but his mom before him had a miscarriage. And they were going to... Well, not stillbirth, okay? And they were going to name him, this child, Vincent Willem van Gogh, because it combined the names of both of Van Gogh's parents, grandfathers. She had a stillbirth on March 30th, 1852. And on March 30th, 1853, Van Gogh was born. Just kind of like, I don't know, I was reading about that in this book. They made it seem a little dramatic. I don't know if that's something that he ever thought about, or something he would think about, or just something that people think about when they look back at the facts of your life. And that's another theme. That's why Van Gogh is so interesting to me, is because so many people have so many misconceptions about him. And they use all these, even scholars, right? They use all these clues about his life and the paintings he was painting and the things he was saying in his letters, and they come to all their conclusions about who he was, what he thought, what other people thought about him. But the point that the fact is, we don't know. He had a lot of mental health issues also, so he could be an extremely unreliable narrator. He could have only written his letters to Theo when he was in a good mood, optimistic. I mean, that's not true, because we'll see there's some quite feisty letters also. But yeah, my point is that this isn't going to be an attempt to characterize him. I don't know. I mean, of course we can speculate. So my point is that we don't know if this was something he thought about, but it's just kind of interesting. Okay. His brother was born in 57. Oh. So this is what I'm talking about. The biographical outline, it says the birth of his favorite brother. Okay. He had a lot of education. He wasn't very good at school. He had to drop out of some schools. He became quite religious. His father was a preacher, and at one point he decided he wanted to be a preacher. And he became a missionary of sorts. He took to heart this, give everything you have to the poor. And he devoted so much of himself to the poor that I think it like freaked out the other missionary leaders there or whatever. I don't know. And they said that he's not suited for this kind of work. So this is like a theme you'll see. It's just the rejection. This man who created such beautiful things went through so much rejection. Like a crazy amount of rejection. Finally, through all this rejection, in 1879, he decides to become an artist. And I will tell you when he passed away. 1891. That's 10, 11, almost 12 years. That's it. And I think it always surprises me how many paintings he actually has. I always see one, I'm like, oh, I never saw that before. This book, it's full of his paintings, and always surprises me, like, oh, I forgot about that one. He painted so much. He literally was prolific. And if we're talking about polymaths, I think he definitely was a polymath. He was, at one point into theology. He was very philosophical, an artist. He's amazing with languages. I think he spoke English, Dutch, I'm guessing German, I don't know, French. He spoke a lot of languages. Anyway, I didn't want to go into all of this. So this podcast, it's not going to be like a direct reading through these letters. It might be. The reason why I made this podcast also is that I wanted to make it even more accessible, the things he had to say, because some of the things he has to say are so profound, and the meaning just deepens the more you know about what he was going through at the time when he said it, or just about his life. But the fact of the matter is that the first chunk of letters, they are so dense because he's kind of in a religious mania, I would say, at that time. And the only reason, I related to that because I was raised like him, very religious. I went, like, I don't like to admit this, but I also went to a Bible college for a time. That was probably the worst year and a half of my life, okay? And it propelled me to where I am today, of like being free from that stuff. That's a whole other topic. But so just the fact that he had that, it's a pretty common journey, okay? It's not like, but just the way he was always guided by this, like a sense of purpose that he didn't even know what it was until he saw it when he decided to become an artist. But anyway, okay. I was telling a story and then I just got into letters. So yeah, I found this book in the bookstore and I just got it. I'm guessing it would have been $7.50 US because it's $14.95. And I was at Half Price Books. So I brought it home. I started reading it. I was just probably at maybe the lowest point of my life. I think, yeah, it must have been because I had just kind of dropped out of this college I just mentioned and quit my job, which I loved. I loved my job so much. I was working at Starbucks, okay, but album came out. I was living in Portland, Oregon at the time, and this album, Carrie and Lowell, came out, and it's about Oregon, and just all these references, and the deep sadness and pain and hope came through of that, and just left me with a sense of just deep longing, which I think he had. And it took me to the lowest point of my life where I thought I had moved back home, moved away from my friends, and I thought that just there was nowhere to go. But there was everywhere to go. Okay. And that's when I found this book. And probably 2 months later, I had moved to Europe. And yeah, his journey of just like moving away from home and starting to do his own thing, and being connected to his brother still. Okay, see, this is why I wanted to write Van Gogh and me, but it would just be sappy essays about nothing. So yes, I was changing my aesthetic to Arto. Okay, that's what it was. And this book, I don't know if you can tell how yellow it is. This book encapsulates every vibe of Arto I could ever have hoped or dreamed to find at the time. Okay. Yeah. When I tell you the coinciding like events of his life and mine go beyond went beyond the religious stuff, but it was a lot of the rejection, the love rejection. Yeah, these letters, they changed me forever, which is why I want to share them. And I think they can change you also. You know, I've been seeing a lot on TikTok. Maybe it's just because I bought the Creative Act by Rick Rubin, but I've also been seeing a lot of The Artist's Way lately. I feel like people are realizing that they need to make art, whether it's, you know, for a job or not. And that's why also I'm making this podcast, is because I can't, you know, just daydream any longer about doing something other than 9-to-5 work. Like, I mean, I probably will always have to do that, okay? That's like a reality I've accepted, but I need to also do something else. I think these letters can like change or support you on whatever journey you are on. And just the way he transitioned from early adulthood to settling in to what he was made to do, which obviously is to paint. And he did have formal training, I think, more as a kid, or when he decided to start painting, he had formal lessons. This man had a lot of connections also. That's why I also think he's kind of an unreliable narrator, because you see so many people like supporting him and whatever he needs. But yeah, his struggle with religion, finding purpose, and just the way he brought beauty into everyday aspects of life. Like when he started painting or drawing, he wanted to show everyday people doing everyday things. Potato eaters. I think this was one of his first paintings, and it's all done in these like browns and blacks and these dark tones to show like the drudgery of eating. And just the name, the potato eaters. They eat potatoes every day. You know, they probably farm potatoes. Their life is probably potatoes. But also they're, you know, gathered together as a family and eating together. He brought beauty to the struggle and everyday life. He just brought beauty to it. He brought art to it. And his ideals about life. He was always very idealistic in the way that everything had some grander meaning or purpose, you know. Yeah, I quote him all the time. From his letters. And the thing is, he had no idea that anyone but Teo would be reading his letters, or to whoever he was sending them to. He was just writing. I think he could have been an author also. He wanted to be a preacher, so I think a lot of the earlier letters he was just writing sermons, and I think he got kind of preachy in these letters, and they're just so... I think I need to read them again, because I had read them just coming out of this experience with organized religion, and I was just like, oh my god, I need to read them again, because I'm sure he had some truths in them somewhere. And that's the thing too, I wonder if he kept a diary, or if writing letters was kind of his therapeutic way to get his thoughts out into the world and just kind of release them. But as I said in the beginning, he said anything done in love is done well. And one time I made this like birthday post to him. It said, "Happy birthday to the inspirational light of my life who showed perseverance and a passion for art despite a lifetime of struggle. XOXO Vincent. Love many things, for therein lies the true strength. And whosoever loves much, performs much, and can accomplish much. And what is done in love is done well." So we're going to get into the letters together. We're going to get into his life together and just pull out the pieces can be helpful to us, just discuss different, just wherever it leads us, because there's so many things. We'll be talking about the context, what resonates today, whatever, just wherever it leads us. I believe his letters are just as profound as, anything like The Artist's Way, Creative Act, these kind of books. Maybe it's if you're I still haven't read The Artist's Way, so I don't know what I'm talking about, but this was supposed to be like a 10-minute intro. It turned more into I don't know what. Oh, I also wanted to talk about, there was a Polish movie called Loving Vincent. It was hand painted, beautiful. Vincent isn't in the story. It follows a guy who goes to, I think, the French town where Vincent, well, it's the thing where Vincent died. And the premise of the movie is that his death seemed very suspicious, and that maybe the angle that he was shot at couldn't have been from himself. So this guy goes to interview everyone, and it's basically him going into the scene of Van Gogh's paintings and seeing like the mailman or the women in his paintings, the cafes, and it's beautiful. So I recommend that. This is the thing also, he worked at this art firm, but he would often sell people really like the art that was cheaper, and he would say that the more expensive art was trash, basically. And that's why he eventually got fired from this job, is because he was not a very good salesman. But you know what? He stuck true to his principles. And I think maybe it was after he worked at this art dealer that he became a missionary. Oh, here's a copy. I have gone to his museum in Amsterdam. I had a panic attack on the top floor. Many people would undoubtedly consider it foolish and superstitious to go on believing in a change for the better. It is sometimes so bitterly cold in the winter that one says, "The cold is too awful for me to care whether summer is coming or not. The harm outdoes the good." But with or without our approval, the severe weather does come to an end eventually, and one fine morning the wind changes, and there is a thaw. When I compare the state of the weather to our state of mind and our circumstances, subject to change and fluctuation like the weather, then I still have some hope that things may get better. If you were to write again soon, you would make me very happy. Should you to do so, please address your letter care of J.B. Dennis, blah, 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 blah. Walked to Westmouth the evening after you left. Have drawn yet another portrait since. Goodbye. Accept a handshake in my thoughts, and believe me, yours truly, Vincent. Shortly after writing this letter, Van Gogh visited his parents in Etten, despite the reluctance he had confessed to Theo. For a whole year, his correspondence with Theo then came to an end, and the other family letters too are almost entirely lacking. This void seems to have been connected with the bad feeling between father and son during the period, the Reverend Theodorus Van Gogh even threatening to have his son locked up in a mental institution in Kiel, because pretty much Van Gogh decided he did not want to be involved in the church anymore, and his father was a pastor. All references to this painful incident were later cut from the letters by Johanna Van Gogh Bonger. Only recently have these passages been restored, though letters written from this period from 1879 to 1880 seem to be irretrievably lost. After a further stay with his parents in the spring of 1880, Van Gogh returned to the Borinage in the summer to become a full-time artist. It was not until July 1880, however, that he wrote to Theo again. Though he did so rather reluctantly, and considering Theo a stranger, his highly individual letter nevertheless ends with the grudging confession, "And know that it will do me good to hear from you." Anyway, we're getting way too far ahead of ourselves, so that's just like a little preview of what's to come. Okay, so this has been episode 0, the introduction to the Lore of Van Gogh. To recap, we'll be going through his letters, diving into maybe historical things happening at that time. I mean, but the thing is, this isn't going to be like a boring art history thing, like, then in 1872. Feel free to read his letters. I think actually I will share a link. They're all online. You don't need to buy a book. They're all uploaded. The Metropolitan Art Museum made all of their works free domain, copyright free. So you can go, I'll leave a link there. You can go to their website. You can see a lot of his paintings. Actually, I think all of his paintings are now copyright free. I don't know. Yes, so this has been the first episode 0. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you stick around for the journey. You know what I'm gonna say next. If you are at all interested in this, please like the video, subscribe, share it. I mean, that would mean the world to me. You have no idea. So thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna post. This is a podcast series, so I'm gonna be posting other videos as well. Be well. As always. Wait, what? How does he sign his letters? Trust and believe. Believe me. Oh my god. Okay. And shaking your hand in my thoughts. Believe me always. Your loving Jade. Okay. Yes, please stick around. I'm so excited for this. We're gonna have fun.